Breaking news in Israel. A political crisis that's been brewing for months is nearing its boiling point.
But now to the crisis in Israel. The country is being swept by massive protests against a court reform plan that critics call a threat to democracy.
Tens of thousands of protesters marched into Jerusalem on Saturday evening, and hundreds of thousands of Israelis took to the streets in Tel Aviv and other cities in a last-ditch show of force aimed at blocking Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's contentious judicial overhaul. Also, Saturday, more than 100 of Israel's former security chiefs signed a letter pleading with the Israeli premier to halt the legislation, and thousands of additional military reservists said they would no longer report for duty. In a protest against the plan, several roads in Jerusalem were blocked as a result of the protest action, with police using water cannons to push back demonstrators. Businesses around the country closed their doors in solidarity with the protesters. If the bill passes, it will be the first major piece of legislation to be approved since the changes to the judiciary were proposed in January. Despite 7 months of sustained protests, the issue has split the nation along lines of religion, ethnicity, and class, raised questions over the military's cohesion and operational readiness, damaged the shekel, and led to public concerns for Israel's democratic health from key allies such as the U.S. Protesters carried Israelis' flags and political signs in a line 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles long that wound through olive orchards and farmland. They'd left seaside Tel Aviv on Thursday, camping overnight roughly halfway to Jerusalem near the Latron Monastery, rising on Friday to shared meals and coffee. The protesters dismantled their tents as others prayed with their arms wrapped in tefillin before they all began marching again towards Jerusalem and the Knesset, Israel's parliament. Lawmakers are expected to vote Monday on a bill that would curtail the Supreme Court's oversight powers by limiting its ability to strike down decisions it deems unreasonable. The standard is meant as a safeguard to protect against corruption and improper appointments of unqualified people. The bill is one of several keystone pieces of the Netanyahu government's judicial overhaul plan. Netanyahu and his allies, a collection of ultranationalist and ultra-Orthodox parties, say the plan is needed to curb what they consider excessive powers of unelected judges. Critics say the legislation will concentrate power in the hands of Netanyahu and his far-right allies and undermine the country's system of checks and balance. They also say Netanyahu, who is on trial for corruption, has a conflict of interest. The proposal has bitterly divided the Israeli public and drawn appeals from Biden for Netanyahu to forge a broad national consensus before passing any legislation. The Judicial Overhaul plan was announced shortly after Netanyahu took office as Prime Minister following November's parliamentary elections. It was Israel's 5th election in under 4 years, with all of the votes serving as a referendum on his leadership. Presidents of major Israeli universities said they would hold a strike Sunday to protest the bill. Local media reported. Doctors held a 2-hour warning strike Wednesday to protest the overhaul, which they said would wreak havoc on the healthcare system by granting politicians greater control over public health. The overhaul, introduced shortly after Netanyahu returned to office at the head of the most extremist right-wing government coalition in Israeli history, calls for sweeping changes aimed at curbing the powers of the unelected judiciary, including limiting the Supreme Court's ability to challenge parliamentary decisions and giving politicians more control over the appointment of judges. Supporters of the changes argue that they are needed to rein in what they see as a left-wing bias in the decisions of the Supreme Court, which serves a prominent role in a country with no formal constitution and only one legislative chamber. Months of talks, led by Israel's ceremonial president, Isaac Herzog, to broker a compromise between the government and opposition parties have failed. But Herzog met again with political leaders on Sunday night in a last-minute effort to get the parties to agree to pause passing the legislation. Herzog visited Netanyahu in hospital immediately after returning from a state visit to the U.S. on Sunday night. This is a time of emergency, his office said in a statement. We have to reach an agreement. Postponement talks are continuing in Netanyahu's office, Hebrew media reported, while opposition parties plan to boycott the final vote on scrapping the reasonableness clause. Voting is expected to begin on Monday afternoon and could last well into the evening. an opposition boycott would have no technical impact on the passing of the bill. If the bill becomes law, it is expected that the coalition will immediately move to reinstate the disgraced Interior Minister, Aryeh Deri, who was barred from holding a cabinet position by the Supreme Court, as well as introducing legislation permanently exempting ultra-Orthodox men from military service. The proposed overhaul has drawn harsh criticism from business and medical leaders, and a fast, rising number of military reservists in key units have said they will stop reporting for duty if the plan passes, raising concern that the country's security interests could be threatened. An additional 10,000 reservists announced they were suspending duty on Saturday night, according to Brothers in Arms, a protest group representing retired soldiers, after 7 straight months of the most sustained and intense demonstrations the country has ever seen. The parliament is expected to vote Monday on a measure that would limit the Supreme Court's oversight powers by preventing judges from striking down government decisions on the basis that they are unreasonable. Proponents say the current reasonability standard gives the judges excessive powers over decision-making by elected officials. But critics say that removing the standard, which is invoked only in rare cases, would allow the government to pass arbitrary decisions, make improper appointments or firings, and open the door to corruption. Protesters, who make up a wide swath of Israeli society, see the overhaul as a power grab fueled by various personal and political grievances by Netanyahu, who is on trial for corruption charges, and his partners, who want to deepen Israel's control of the occupied West Bank and perpetuate controversial draft exemptions for ultra-Orthodox men. Netanyahu's health issues. The Israeli leader was first admitted to hospital last Saturday. His office said at the time that he had experienced dizziness, while Israeli media reported that he fainted. He was released the following day after doctors at the Sheba Medical Center fitted him with a heart monitor. Netanyahu was hospitalized again over the weekend and was fitted with a pacemaker early Sunday morning, according to a statement from his office. The procedure happened at Tel Hashomer Hospital, and the Prime Minister was sedated during the surgery. Roy Bernhardt, director of the Davi Center, that Netanyahu had the heart monitor implanted because of a known conduction disorder, another name for a heart block. Netanyahu released a short video statement later Sunday, saying he was doing great after the operation. I would like to thank the many of you who have asked how I am doing. I am doing great. In a speech Thursday, Netanyahu doubled down on the overhaul and dismissed as absurd the accusations that the plan would destroy Israel's democratic foundations. And that concludes our video. What you think about Israel's current situation? Let us know in the comments section. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more captivating videos. Thanks for watching.